The octopus smiled, pretended not to hear. Anyway, he continued, it feels good to squeeze and tickle you, and you do look pretty when you blush. The fat girl bit her lip, unplugged her earphones, switched off her iPod, glanced at the octopus, then up at the sky, where the stairway to heaven had yet to materialise. Seeing that she felt a little uncomfortable, the octopus unlooped the tentacle from around her breast and renounced the earlobe tickling thing. Both techniques had worked well up to this, though it's true, not all his conquests were thus conquered. That was just the way, tentacled trial and error. The bus lurched to a halt, doors opening with a loud badumph that jolted bodies and rolled heads so it seemed like the passengers had been electrocuted. Warm fumes poofed the faces of the bus shelter bunch. The fat girl blinked, smoothed down her hair, which had blasted in 27 wrong directions. She waited for the old lady in the wheelchair to be lowered to the level of the pavement. In front of the doors, there was a mound of grass where a single white primrose grew. A momentary spear of dying light riveted it, like a petrified butterfly pinned for its beauty. Yet even in the gathering shadows, it held its light, as if illuminated from within. But that was before the old lady wheeled over it, mashing it entirely. This is the number 6, the fat girl said to the octopus. This is the bus I'm getting. Me too, said the octopus, at which moment the wheelchair-bound old lady rolled over 5 of his tentacles, prompting them to convulse, and the octopus to emit a shriek, the likes of which was enough to exterminate all unborn babies living between the bus stop and the moon. The fat girl felt a judder inside her, followed by a half-hearted kick, and then nothing. The old lady, meanwhile, had fallen out of the wheelchair with fright, and passers-by had gathered round to help her up. I'm so sorry, the octopus said to the old lady, and the fat girl wondered for a fleeting moment whether she had really seen his grey jowls turn the faintest tinge of pink. Of course, she could have been mistaken. Yes, most likely it was her own wayward emotion getting the better of her. The bus driver was getting impatient. Are you getting on or not? He growled. Yes, yes, the fat girl said, shooting an awkward glance at the octopus and fussing with the handbag straps that had been digging into her shoulder. After you, my dear, said the octopus, and he genuflected, tentacles gesturing like he was bowing before a queen. The mechanical device that had lowered the old lady in the wheelchair down off the bus had already withdrawn, and the fat girl paused, as if considering how she might board without it. The mound with the mashed flour may have made it easier for her to step up, but the bus had already inched past it. The octopus offered the fat girl a tentacle, which she gradually took in her hand. Its sliminess did not appear to bother her. When she did manage to heave herself up with firm octopus support, the bus tilted and lifted, disgorging a rude, ripping hiss before rejoining the rush hour traffic. The bus was crowded. Condensation misted the window so no one could see out. The fat girl pushed through the crush. People stared, then looked away. Meeting her weary gaze would have meant having to give up one's seat if one was lucky to have one, or making an effort to pretend not to pity or despise. Finally, she wedged herself near the back between 2 tall men and a pole. Her fingers chose the pole for grip. The octopus shimmied his way behind her through the mass of bodies, which were tipped this way and that as the bus bounced over potholes and swerved to avoid jaywalkers, barging cars, and dead policemen. His tentacles played mute and beautiful music in the air, and there was something truly sensuous in the way his liquid arms touched and tickled the pole as they coiled themselves around it, clenching, releasing like a pulsing heart. Their sinuous rhythm made her own limbs come alive, replacing something dead inside her. Their sinuous rhythm made her own... He moved effortlessly like the world was water. The fat girl watched, believing that if she scrutinized his silken movements long and hard enough, she might sense how to move that way too. She had never learned how to swim. Maybe it was time. "How long to go?" the octopus said, with a slow-motion flick of a tentacle, which, intentional or not, caressed the fat girl's cheek. 2 weeks, 2 days, she said, directing her hand towards her belly. That's if it had come on time. "I meant the bus," the octopus said, blowing something icky and green into a tentacled fist, which he proceeded to dab on the ceiling of the bus. The fat girl swallowed. People drew back, so she had room to hunker down and act like she was foraging in her bag, when all she intended was to hide her blush. Hauling herself to standing, she said, "How long it takes depends on where you're going." "I'm going where you're going," he said. "Then it's about 25 minutes to the final stop," she said. "Not long so," he said, and a vagrant feeler slid over the bulge of her belly like a hungry, curious worm. She could feel the warmth of the tentacle penetrate her middle as it squeezed a little harder, but resisted asking him to remove it. "I should thank you, I guess," she said, her voice sounding thin, barely audible indeed above the holler of the bus engine. "You've saved me from my greatest fear." The octopus drew her closer to him then, enfolding her in a mess of seaweedy limbs. His fishy palm enveloped her. It was hard to breathe. And as the bus careened through no-name streets, she popped in her earphones once again, turned the iPod on and listened to the closing bars of her nearly favourite song. How long now to the final stop? 5, 10 minutes at the most? Closing her eyes tight, clasping the pole tighter, she imagined climbing up and up, out of the tentacled embrace, away from herself, free of flesh and the beast inside her that, alive or dead, would have forever weighed her down.